What's going on, you guys? Ryan here again with another video. And as the title suggests, I have made contact with the gray aliens. But in a weird kind of way. So, some of you out there may know or not know what astral projection is. And I myself am not a big astral projection kind of guy. I know what astral projection is. I have not really dabbled with it or experimented with it. But I know some people who have done astral projection. And for those of you who do not know what astral projection is, it's basically a method in which one can have their higher self or their spirit temporarily leave their body, and they can go anywheres in the world, or even, not even in the world, but, they can go, some people have reported going to other planets and other places in the universe. Now, astral projection is something that can be learned, and sometimes people astral project unknowingly and unwillingly. My uncle, for example, has astral projected twice in his lifetime, and it always happens when he's asleep. And it happens to a lot of people. Sleep is a conduit between this world and the spirit realm. And a lot of things can happen when somebody's asleep. And one of the things that can happen, again, unwillingly, because the person isn't trying to, is people can astral project. Now, this is something that happened to me. I evidently astral projected, and it happened while I was asleep. And when I astral projected, I ended up somewheres out west, in the western part of the United States. And while I was out there, there was somebody else, I don't know who this person was, but they kept kind of like, come on, like, bring me towards this, like, rock face. And there was this huge kind of like boulder shape in the rock face with a flat, very flat underlying where you could go under. And I didn't want to go under this rock face because I was afraid that it was going to come down on me, but eventually I did anyways. I went under it. And on the other side of this rock face, there was a like cave entrance, or in the back of the underlying, there was a small kind of, I don't know what kind of shaped entrance it was, whether it was circular or oblong. But there was an entrance in the back of the cave, like a hole. And I went down there with this person. And the next thing I knew, when I went through this hole, I was in a underground United States military base. And I was in a stairwell. To be more specific, it was a stairwell within this underground United States base. And instantly I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. And something happened. I lost track of this person who led me underneath the rock face into this hole. And I went to the left through this door that was connected to the stairwell. And the next thing I know, I'm in an office. If you even want to call it an office, it was an office/lab. And in this place, there were human beings and what we would call gray aliens. And the gray aliens were working alongside these different humans. Now, what was so interesting about this was the gray aliens that I saw did not have gray skin. It was a bluish skin. I don't know how to describe it. It was like a lightish blue, where under certain lighting conditions, you could definitely kind of mistake them as having gray colored skin. But this room, it was a center room where there were almost like these cubicle, like, different compartments set up where people were working. And then along the sides of this room, there were windows where they were kind of compartmentalized laboratories where they were doing experiments. And one of the gray aliens, I went to look at what he was doing. He was working on something. I don't know what he was working on, but I went to look at one of the gray aliens, and he instantly knew I was there. And he turned around and looked right at me and said nothing, but just stopped what he was doing and just kind of stared at me until I decided to not focus on him anymore. Then he went back to doing what it was he was doing. Then there was a second gray alien, and this gray alien was kind of laying flat on some kind of structure. Maybe it was a bed. I don't know what it was exactly. I wasn't focused on that. But when I focused on this particular gray alien, it was lying flat on its back, and it turned its head and looked right at me, just like the other alien did. This alien knew it could see me, and it knew that I was focused on it. And so this gray alien turned and looked at me and actually telepathically put something in my mind and just said, "What do you want?" Kind of in a jerk-like manner, I guess, if you want to say. This telepathic message was feminine. It had the voice had it was a feminine-like voice. And it also, what was weird was it also kind of sounded like the alien was if you've ever talked into something metallic before, like a can, and it has kind of like this, your voice kind of gets like this metallic-y echo to it. It kind of sounded like that. It was a feminine voice that kind of sounded a little metallic-y. Or maybe artificial. I don't know how you want to describe it. But after that, the dream kind of, or dream astral project, whatever you want to call it, it ended. And for the whole day after I woke up from it, I felt really weird. I kind of brushed it off as a dream. And then I started doing some research. And some of the research I found about gray aliens was some people reported that there were gray aliens working in underground laboratories that had blue skin. And by underground laboratories, I have to rephrase that. I mean underground U.S. military bases. But they had blue skin, and that was the thing that caught my eye. And then I started going further into it and realized that through other channels I had, being mediumship and all, that this was an astral projection. My opinion of the gray aliens, from my experience, from what I encountered, was that, and this was the first time I've ever encountered, had to deal with the gray aliens, by the way. I never really had any dealings with them or encounters with them in the past. Most of my encounters have been Pleiadian, also known as the Nordics, and one with the Blue Avians, and some few other, kind of ETs that we really don't know much about. They're not really talked about in the mainstream. But this was my first time with the Greys. And my opinion of the Greys is, from what I experienced, was that they were there was no emotion coming from them at all. They were kind of cold. I would not say they were good or evil. And again, maybe they were evil, maybe they were good, and I just didn't spend enough time around them. But I didn't get the perception of good and evil. I just got the perception of there was no emotion. They were kind of cold. And the other thing was they thought of me being there as a nuisance. Like, they were very focused on their job, very focused on their objectives, what they were working on, and I was an inconvenience. I was getting in the way. You know, it's almost too as if they didn't want to be there. You know, in that U.S. military base, like, you want to think of it almost like a human being who has to work a job that they don't really care about. That's what it reminded me of. So that was my kind of impression of the gray aliens. So I tried to find something on Google in terms of image searches that looked close to the gray aliens that I saw in this United States military base, this underground base. And I went through a bunch of different images of gray aliens. And this was the picture that, in my opinion, was closest to what I saw in this base. Now, as you can see by looking at this image, here you have an image of a gray alien. As you can see, their skin is kind of blue in this picture. I would say the skin of the gray alien was a little bit more bluish than this. Not by much, but just a smidgen more blue. The bone structure of the jaw right down here is spot on. Now, if you look at this picture, where the jawbone is, here I would guess, if you want to say, is where the cheekbone and the skull kind of come outwards from the jaw. I would say that this area comes out just a bit more. So it's a bit more pronounced. That's the only difference between this picture and what I saw in the base. And then the last thing is the eyes. So the eyes I would make just a little bit bigger than what's in this picture. But otherwise, this is a pretty close representation as to what I saw in this United States military base. So, I mean, that's about it. I don't have much more to add to that, just other than that's what I saw. I could not, now being I mention it, I can't tell, or, not that I mention it, but, now being I'm thinking about it, I can't tell whether these gray aliens were small grays or tall grays. I don't think I was focused on that, and I can't even remember, to be honest, but that's about it. Who knows if I'll have any more encounters with them again, but very interesting dream indeed, or astral projection. I keep calling it a dream. I call it a dream because it happened when I was sleeping. But that's about all. If you like this video, hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe, and till next time.